Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to replace the background on this particular image. We're going to take it into select and mask and finally apply an oil paint filter, and I'll explain the reasons for that in a moment. This is the image we're going to end up with, which I think you'll probably agree is a much improved image and hasn't taken too long to achieve. So let's go back to the main image. Now if we zoom in, you can see there is a lot of noise, and that's not even at 100%. And this was taken a few years ago when I was quite a novice in photography. I was using a Panasonic Micro Four Thirds, and for some reason I put it on auto. But the settings were 2.8, but then it was 0.004 of a second, which has produced the noise. And at the time, I was quite happy with the image. I thought, yes, that looks great. But having more experience now, I realised that it was a nice image, but there's things I could do to improve it. So this is what I'm actually doing. I'm going back to old images and seeing if there's anything I can do to enhance the image. So this is what we're going to do with this one. First thing I'm going to do is to make a background, which is something I very often do, and then I'll save them. First of all, we'll take the crop tool and we'll crop most of the background out. And it doesn't matter if you end up with a small image, because you're going to have a blurred background anyway. So you can either press enter or click the tick at the top. Now what we'll do is we'll get the clone brush. We're going to leave it on 100%, 50% flow. We'll go into the image, choose the size of your brush, hold the Alt key down on your keyboard, hold the left mouse down, and start cloning away. Just keep on sampling. Doesn't matter if you get a repeat of the stamens. We're getting rid of all that dark, busy area. And I'm doing this very quickly. Every background is going to be different. There's a bit of a dark area there, so we'll get rid of that. And that's it, finished. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Gaussian blur. So we go up to filter, come down to blur, and select Gaussian blur. So if we set it on, say, 100, I think that's probably about right. You can see a bit of detail in it, but not too much. So I'm going to say OK to that. Now, this is the one that I've got saved in my background folder, which is not too far from that one. We've got some more slightly darker areas there, but I don't think that really matters. So what you're going to do is at this point, save this wherever you want to save your backgrounds. So you rename it, leave it as a PSD file, and then save it, as I say, as to whatever name you want to give it. Okay, so that's the first part of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back in my history now and take it right back to the original. The next thing I like to do is to look for any blemishes on the flowers. There could be a crease which results in a brown area. I can see one there. Let's just have a look. Now I can see a tiny one there. So I think we'll get the spot healing tool. Let's zoom in a bit more so you can see it more closely. It is very small, that one there. So I'm going to get the spot healing tool. Just click content aware, because it will select something very close to where it is, and just click and drag across with your mouse. Okay, it doesn't matter if that little spot's there, because you're going to be putting a filter over the top anyway, but that could stand out. The next thing we'll do is we'll use the quick selection tool to select the subject. And you only want to select the subject, the part of the subject that you really want to have in your image. So select the quick selection tool. Now up here you've got plus and minus. That basically means if you want to take it away, click the minus. If you want to add it, add part of the image, then you click the plus button. We can select subject from here, or you can select it from there. But I'm going to select it from here because what I'm going to do as well, I'm going to select cloud, which will give you detailed results. It says there, if it's device, it's quicker, but we're looking for a better selection. Okay, so choose the size of your brush. Make sure we've got quick selection tool selected. We're going to select plus, select the subject. Computer will take a little while, depending on the speed of your computer. Okay, so now we've got a rough selection. And what happens is, if the image actually stands out from the background, Photoshop can make a very good job of selecting. But as you can see here, some of it is, a similar tone. So we're going to have to take some of that away. So let's have a go at that. So we've got our quick selection tool selected. Let's have a go. So we're going to be on the minus because we want to take away. So let's take away this part here. And this will take a little while, but bear with me. And what will happen sometimes is it will actually take away more than you want. So just press the plus and then bring it back in again. Just got to have a little bit of patience. So we'll deal with that. We'll deal with that there. Take that out. And I want to take this out because it's very, very blurred. I don't want the really blurred petals in. Click the plus again to reselect that. And then click the plus again because I do want that petal in. And the thing is, if you choose too large a brush, this is what happens. So if you reduce the size of your brush and then just come in, but I think you get the general gist of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on selecting and then I'll come back to you. So I've selected the flower part. What I'm going to do now is select the stem. And the stem is very, very blurred because it was obviously further back from the petals. So I'm going to do as good a job as I can. But we can always clean this up later. You may do this a different way to me if you're an expert at this. Obviously, I've got my own way of working. And I'm always open to suggestions. So if you want to leave any comments down below, you're very welcome. Okay, I think that's enough for now. So let's take the image now into select and mask. And there's two ways you can do it. You can go up to here and say select and mask, or you can go to this little box here in the menu. So we click select and mask. And that hasn't made a bad job. I think the only thing we've got here is where some of the background has bled in, and it depends how well you do select the subject, but this can always be cleaned up. The stem's not brilliant, but we'll also do something about that later. So I think what I'll do is, first of all, I'll explain all this on the side here. You've got different view modes. So at the moment, I've got it on layers. You can have onion skin. You can have marching ants. You can have overlay. You can have black. You can have white. You can have black and white, but I prefer this one, but it's your choice. I'm not going to click remember settings because otherwise it'll keep the settings from when I did the last image, and I like to do separate settings depending on what the image is. So we're going to go down to edge detection, and we'll select the radius first of all. The radius set to 20. That is probably the absolute maximum I would do. Click Smart Radius, and then come down to Smooth and put that on about 12. Feather, maybe on about 5 or less. It's up to you, it depends on the type of image. Contrast I'm leaving alone. Shift Edge. Now, depending on the speed of your computer, depends on how quick you will see these results. So you know, if you've got a reasonably slow computer, you've got to wait for the computer to catch up and show you the results. I would set this probably on about 50%. So if I type in 50, you can see look, I've put in plus 50. So what it's done is it's gone to the opposite way and shown more of the edges. So minus 50, look. And I don't think that's too bad a job. So we're not going to say OK at the moment. We need to click Decontaminate Colours and also make sure the output into a new layer with a layer mask. What we're going to do is we're going to probably clean all this up a little bit. And I'm going to use the brush. I'm just going to have quite a small brush. If you click the minus, what it will do is it will take, I think I better zoom in. Okay, so click and then minus. It's quite a soft brush as well. Yeah, 56%, something like that. So I'm just going to go around these areas. And it's just taking out that edge. Don't want to do it too much. That does look a lot better. I don't think there's really any other areas. I think maybe, let's just have a look here. A little area there, but it's so minute. So if you're not careful, you break too much into the image. The last thing I'm going to do now is to tidy up the stem. So we're on the brush again. We're going to click the plus. We're going to leave all these settings as they are. I'll alter the size of my brush a little bit. And let's just run down the side of the stem. Gotta have a bit of a steady hand for this. Okay, and run down the other side. And that's fine. I'll just tackle that little bit underneath the petals there where there's a little bit of a gap. And I think that's it. As I say, all the settings are the same. Don't forget to click New Layer with Layer Mask, and that'll take it into your original image, and it will form a background copy. So the next thing to do is to bring in our blurred background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open and find my blurred background. I've put it on the desktop for ease. And what we'll do is we'll click the Move tool, come down into the background, hold the mouse button to the left, and move up to your image, and then bring it back down and release your mouse button. Now we're going to resize the background, and you're able to move it around because you're still on the Move tool. We're going to stretch it so that it's bigger than the image. And if you're happy with that, click the tick at the top. Next thing you need to do is to drag this layer down below your background copy. And there you have your background. You can rename this blurred background if you wish. At this stage, I would probably crop because there seems to be a bit of empty space. So just do a little bit of cropping. And that looks fine. Click to say OK. I'd just like to discuss the noise in this image. As I said earlier, that being a novice, I wasn't aware that it had actually set on 4,000 per second. So you can see there is a lot of noise that's nearly to 100%, and that's not really acceptable. So a few months ago, I actually purchased Topaz. Now they do a suite of software. I purchased a suite of software, but the most handy one I find is Topaz Denoise, which will also do a bit of sharpening. But you can purchase that as a standalone piece of software. And it's about £65 UK or $80. And you also can have a free trial if you want to. So you don't need to pay that money out to start with, but you can give it a try and see whether you like it. I personally find it very handy. I'm not bragging now, but I don't tend to suffer from a lot of noise in my images, even though I'm using a micro 4/3 camera. But it is handy when something goes wrong, you've made a mistake, I don't know, whatever, and you can bring that noise back to an acceptable and make an acceptable image. At this point, I think we'll apply some oil paint. So make sure you're on your background copy, but not the mask. So make sure you're actually on the image on the background copy. Let's zoom in a little. And you can see the effect it has. So we go up to filter, to stylize, oil paint. Now I tend to accept these settings most of the time. We've got 10 for stylization, 10 for cleanliness, 0.1 for scale, and 0.0 for bristle detail. And you can actually find out what all these do. I won't explain it today. I think I did in another video. And if you want to look it up, it's there for you. That will explain what all these settings do. I don't tend to click this lighting because, as you can see, it's very sort of like hard brush strokes, and I prefer to have a softer look. So we're going to click OK to that. You can actually apply this oil filter as many times as you like. I mean, if you apply it again, which I have done in the past, then you get an even softer look. But I think just once for this is enough because it's still retaining some details, say, in these veins here as well. I don't think we need to do any sharpening because I don't think it'll make any difference. So we'll leave the image as it is. And I think the next thing we'll do is to start masking out the petal edges so it doesn't look as though the image has been plonked onto the background. So I'm going to start masking out the petal edges. So it gives it an even softer look around the edges. It doesn't look as though it's been plonked onto the background. Here are the settings for the brush. And that again is personal preference. 25% hardness, so it's quite a soft brush. We have 25% opacity and 50% flow. Make sure you're on your mask on your background copy. Make sure you've got black selected, because what black will do on a mask will paint the background in. If you select white as your foreground, that will paint the background out. So you'll have more of your background copy image, if you can understand that. So, as I say, the size of your brush depends on you. So we're going to try and do a bit of softening up the petals. It's better really to use a lower opacity and get a softer look to start with, and then just keep building it up if you want to. So we're just going to go around the edges, and I'm only going to do this very quickly. And you can see a slight difference. It's quite subtle. And this is what I say, you want a subtle look to start with. You can just keep pressing your mouse button. So be careful with these darker ones because it can actually darken the edge of your petal. See, you can see it there where it's darkened it slightly, but I'm not taking too much care, am I? You will obviously take more time. But I think you get the idea. The more you build it up, the softer the look is going to look, especially when it's on quite a subtle background as well. So I think that's enough of that. I think you probably got the gist of it. The next thing we're going to do, I think, is mask out the stem, because that looks a bit too dark. We're going to use the same settings. We're not going to change anything. But we'll select the brush tool again. We've got black because we want some of the background to come in. What I'm going to do is take the bottom of the stem out because I want it to look very soft at the bottom. So just keep on resampling, and eventually, as I say, if you just keep it on about 25% opacity, it won't do it all at once. So you get a chance to sort of just do it in bits. So we'll bring it down, lighten the stem, and keep on just sampling a bit at a time. And this is personal preference as well. It depends whether you want to do this. You don't have to, but because it's so dark, I think it stands out so much. Let's just do the edges a little bit. So I think you've got the idea with that. And I think that's all we need to do to this image now. So I think that looks a lot better than before, a lot better. You've got more of an acceptable image there. Let's compare the one that we've just done to the one I've previously done. You can see quite a marked difference because I have actually used Topaz, and you can see there's a lot more definition in the veins and probably around the petals. But I think that's quite an acceptable image. It's certainly a lot better from the original. And if we look at the original, I think, yes, definitely an improvement. Hope that's been helpful to you and you've enjoyed the video. If you have enjoyed it, you can like and subscribe. If you subscribe, then you'll see future videos coming up. I would just like to thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.